Hello, my name is Eldonna Shaw Davis, and I'm a student at Aspen University in the doctoral program for a doctorate in education in organization learning and leadership. And with this assignment, I'm doing this video for Module 5's assignment in the course called RSH 916, Problem-Based Research in Action. The assignment was to choose an idea to develop for an action research project. And I took one of the three ideas from my discussion one, and it is factors related to low graduation rates in a rural Idaho high school. And how I got interested in this is kind of interesting. I grew up in a very poor area of rural Idaho and in a fairly large consolidated district in terms of miles, but not in terms of enrollment. Um, when I went back for my 30th year high school reunion, I was pretty shocked to find out that of the 26 or so graduation or people who walked in graduation and my senior year, only 19 of us got diplomas. And that really bothered me to figure out why did this happen? And so I got interested in this to see if it had anything to do with attendance issues. And I think that there may be some real important things that could be gained if someone were to do this action research. I recently inherited my family's farm, which was a 88-acre original homestead, and I've thought about creating a foundation for and making the farm kind of an educational center. And, the more I think about this, this could be something that's needed in that community. Um, I worked on a course last summer where I chose to look at this school district. And what I was shocked about was since I graduated, there has been kind of even as bad and sometimes worse percentage of high school graduates. And I think that's pretty sad because we are that in that community, it's about, I'd say, 40 to 50 miles away from 4 or 5 good universities. And students were not graduating from high school and they weren't going on. I, my, at the time when I graduated, it was a very high Native American enrollment. Many families had social and health problems. There was high unemployment in the entire community because they were emerging from a highly agrarian, natural resource occupations. And I would say it was high unemployment and it was economically depressed. And what it is now, some almost 40 years later, is that the community is a lot more wealthy. The tribe, the local native tribe, is the biggest employer in the county, and they always had some good land, but they maximized what they could do with their properties, and also they now have a big health center, a PGA rated golf course, a beautiful hotel, resort, casino, and they are the biggest employer in the county. And so, it's not like it used to be. And there's still, it's like there's low unemployment and the economic issues don't seem to be the problem. But in what I could see in the State Department of Education statistics, the school district now is still has about the same percentages of high school dropouts. And it places that school at pretty much the bottom of the ladder in terms of schools in the state of Idaho. And I believe that if it's not the economy, what are the issues that are affecting people such that students are not graduating from high school? My goals for this action-based research would be to find out what are the factors affecting low high school graduation numbers. And if it isn't the income, what else could it be? Um, I think it could have a lot to do with the attitudes towards education and attitudes towards school. And I think action research would be a very good way to look at this and to be able to determine if, what factors are at play that's creating this situation. The school district is a little different. The school where I went to high school is the same building, and the what used to be two school districts is now one. I went to Plummer School District, and now it's consolidated with a neighboring town called Worley, and the whole district is called Lakeside. And it doesn't have a high enrollment, but it's bigger than it once was. Um, I don't know what the ethnic minority mix is at the school, but from what I could read last summer when I was doing a little research, it's high density minority. And I think that it's probably similar. It's right, the school district is right in the middle of the reservation, the tribal reservation. And I think that there's got to be something more than the economy and any other kind of social problems that could be there. I really do think it has a lot to do with attitude. I know my family was not wealthy, and I had to work hard to. I wasn't even sure I was going to be good enough to go to college, even though I graduated as valedictorian in that school. And I was worried about that because there was a huge self-image issue. And when I went to school, even my family, if I talked about going away to see something in a big city or travel to a point on the globe, I'd hear constantly, well, people like us don't do things like that. And so it was kind of hard. And to this day, I'm glad I was able to make it through and to be able to have a much richer life. And I would like to uh, be able to help out with that in that community to maybe make some social change. And action research really can facilitate that. In the very beginning, I'd want to determine if my assumptions are correct in terms of income and employment. And I'd want to be able to do some research on what was the status of unemployment and income, maybe family income in that area. How many families were there 40 years ago and what's there now? And be able to determine that. I'd also like to look at the um, ethnic demographics to see how different that might be, and to do some literature research to see if anybody else has done some work to study rural America and some of the issues that affect high school graduation. I do think that right now, as a teacher in a regional university in Eastern Washington, I've found when the pandemic was on that many students did not have access to the internet, and that was a real problem. And I remember as a 12-year-old kid, I was so pleased when my parents would allow me to ride my bicycle 5 miles to the local DeSmet Mission post office where the bookmobile would park once a week and I could check out books. So, the resources, educational resources, may be somewhat of the difficulty. I think another factor that might be important to look at would be just how the school was structured back then and now. I do know that the state has put quite a lot of money into uh, adding more teachers so that they actually have a much better teacher to student ratio than we had 40 years ago. And that still hasn't had an effect. So we're still next to the bottom. So what I want to do is explore the beliefs. What's happening there? what hasn't changed? What tends to be perpetuated? So the first thing I want to do is to um, look at what's going on with attitudes. And I think one of the best ways to do this would be to do some surveys and research. And it might be a little bit challenging to be able to get this done, but I think it would be interesting to look at students in sixth grade and students in ninth grade and look at the ones right now and develop a questionnaire that would probably be kind of like a Likert scale, uh, most agree and not agree and agree and not agree. Um, and structure the question so you could get a sense of whether students like school, whether they feel they're doing well, or if they're not, what they think about school, and do that for both the sixth grade and the ninth grade. And the reason I think those would be two grades that would be good at about 11 or 12, you're trying to grow up. And at the ninth grade, they are going to be well, they could be at a four-year high school, but they're definitely going to be progressing to a higher level of education. And at that point, you would hope they have an attitude about school that's positive. Um, I would look at those and look to see if their attitudes are positive, neutral, negative, and then also look at the students in the ninth grade as well. So it'd be the sixth and the ninth grade. And I think that also it would be good to kind of have questions that would help us understand whether or not they um, feel that there's opportunities to graduate. One of the things I've heard right now is that because the tribe is very wealthy, there are some students who don't figure it's important to graduate from high school because they know they'll have an income. And that could be a problem. But there are also many of the graduates who've gone on to be tremendously successful. And right now, the president and CEO of the resort and casino is a young woman that grew up in that area, went to that elementary and high school, and went on to be a distinguished graduate, and is now really a leader in her business and her, in the tribal corporation. I would also want to look at what they expect, what the students would expect to do after they graduate. That could be some questions. So there would be some surveys. Now, granted, I have to get permission from the IRB, and these would be kids, most of them under 18, I hope. Anyway, and we would also need to look at permission from the school district, permission from the parents, and there would be a number of things that you need to do, but this would be truly anonymous. There would not be a identification of who the students are. After gathering the information from the anonymous student surveys, I would also look at what percentages, not by designating the students, but what percentages in each of those classes have uh, attendance problems. And look at that, the attendance for the sixth grade and the attendance for the ninth grade. After that, I would like another stakeholder in this survey would not only be the students and the parents and the schools, but I'd like to hear from successful graduates. I think it would be interesting to identify 10 to 20 successful grads from that high school and ask them maybe even take the same survey and ask them to try to remember how they felt when they were in those age groups, and to see what that might provide. I would also interview these successful grads and be able to find out what in essence helped them become successful, to go on to school and to become successful in the work that they've chosen to. In analyzing the data collected from the sixth and ninth grade students, I would look to see if there is a high and low percentage of attendance along with the percentages of um, poor attitudes about school and positive attitudes about school. I think it would be interesting to see if you could see some kind of pattern in attitudes and beliefs. If there can be a pattern established between attitudes and attendance, my idea of an intervention would be a mentoring program. Um, by getting to know some of those successful grads, I think I would like to see if I could get some volunteers who wouldn't mind being teamed up, maybe with a Facebook or not a Facebook, but a FaceTime communication with an at-risk student, um, maybe Zoom, maybe if they're local, be able to meet with them periodically and show an interest. I know that I think when I look back on what I did, I got a lot of support from my first grade teacher who in this rural school, she was very young when she first started teaching, and she actually pretty much followed me all the way through high school. She was my first grade teacher. Second, she moved on to the bigger school in the center of the consolidated district. And oh gosh, I had her for sixth grade, 10, ninth grade English. I worked for her in the library, and she helped me fill out applications for scholarships. So I had that teacher. I had my 4-H leader, who was very encouraging about achievement, and my grandmother, who was very, very interested in school and wanted me to be successful. That's why I think an intervention with pairing a success story from the school to kids that are needing help, at least in the attitude area, would be important. I would hope that we could see from this intervention of putting in place a mentorship program that we'd see some positive change in that community because it's a beautiful community. And I'm going to be spending a lot more time down there since I inherited the farm. And I'd like to be able to make a difference in that community because there are people who are so capable. And if they're not believing in themselves, that's part of the reason why they're not. And I really hope that I can do something about this. I think the true proof of whether or not something like this would be work would be to do a longitudinal study and study these same students in that sixth and ninth grade, um, those grades in that school to see what happens and to maybe look at their graduation rates from high school and to see if that has an effect. Excited about action research. I think there's a lot that can be done in terms of identifying social change, and I am pleased um, to be able to think up this idea and maybe make a difference in a community that's very deserving. Thank you very much.